All right, and certainly as we deal with Kingdom Life, uh, Kingdom Life Bible Study, you have your study guide, and let's just go through
Where are we?
Leviticus the 23rd chapter. Leviticus the 23rd chapter, and I don't want to read the whole thing, but let's do this. Let's read down. Well, I tell you what. Let's begin at verse 5, and then and look at verse 5. Well, verse 4. All right, Leviticus 23:4. These are the feasts of the Lord, even holy convocations, which ye shall proclaim in their seasons. Verse 5, in the 14th day of the first month at even is the Lord's Passover, and on the 15th day of the same month is the feast of unleavened bread. Unto the Lord 7 days you must eat unleavened bread. In the first day ye shall have an holy convocation. Ye shall do no servile work therein, but ye shall offer an offering made by fire unto the Lord 7 days. In the seventh day is an holy convocation. Ye shall do no servile work therein. Verse 9. And the Lord spake unto Moses, saying, Speak unto the children of Israel, and say unto them, When ye be come into the land which I give unto you, and shall reap the harvest thereof, then ye shall bring a sheaf of the first fruit of your harvest unto the priest. And he shall wave the sheaf before the Lord to be accepted for you. On the morrow after the Sabbath, the priest shall wave it. And ye shall offer that day, when ye wave the sheaf and the he lamb without blemish of the first year for a burnt offering unto the Lord. And the meat offering thereof shall be 2/10 deals of fine flour mingled with oil, and offering made by fire unto the Lord for a sweet savor, and the drink offering thereof shall be of wine, the fourth part of an hin. And ye shall eat neither bread, nor parched corn, nor green ears, until the selfsame day that ye have brought an offering unto your God. It shall be a statute forever throughout your generations in all your dwellings. Verse 15. And ye shall count unto you from the morrow after the Sabbath, from the day ye brought the sheaf of the wave offering, 7 Sabbaths shall be complete. Even unto now, the morrow after the 7th Sabbath, ye shall number 50 days, and ye shall offer a new meat offering unto the Lord. And ye shall bring out of your habitations 2 wave loaves of 2/10 deals. They shall be of fine flour. They shall be baken with leaven. They are the first fruits unto the Lord. And ye shall offer with the bread 7 lambs without blemish of the first year, and 1 young bullock, and 2 rams. They shall be for a burnt offering unto the Lord. And their meat offering, their drink offerings, even an offering made by fire of the sweet savor of the Lord. Then ye shall sacrifice 1 kid of the goats for a sin offering, and 2 lambs of the first year for a sacrifice of peace offerings. And the priest shall wave them with the bread of the first fruit for a wave offering before the Lord with the 2 lambs. They shall be holy unto the Lord for the priest. And ye shall proclaim on the same day that it may be a holy convocation unto you. Ye shall do no servile work therein. It shall be a statute forever in your dwellings throughout your generations. And when you reap the harvest of your land, ye shall not make clean residence or riddance of the corners of thy field when thou reapest. Neither shalt thou gather any gleaning of thy harvest. Thou shalt leave them unto the poor and to the stranger. I am the Lord your God. And the Lord spake unto Moses, saying, Speak unto the children of Israel, saying, In the 7th month of the first day of the month shall ye have a Sabbath, a memorial of blowing of trumpets, and holy convocation. Ye shall do no servile work therein, but ye shall offer an offering made by fire unto the Lord. And the Lord spake unto Moses, saying, Also on the 10th day of this 7th month there shall be a day of atonement. It shall be a holy convocation unto you. And ye shall afflict your souls and offer an offering made by fire unto the Lord. And ye shall do no work in that same day, for it is a day of atonement, to make an atonement for you before the Lord your God. For whatsoever a soul it be that shall not be afflicted in that same day, he shall be cut off from among his people. And whatsoever soul it be that doeth any work in that same day, the same soul will I destroy from among his people. Ye shall do no manner of work. It shall be a statute forever throughout your generations in all your dwellings. It shall be unto you a Sabbath of rest, and ye shall afflict your souls. In the 9th day of the month at even, from even unto even, shall ye celebrate your Sabbath. And the Lord spake unto Moses, saying, Speak unto the children of Israel, saying, The 15th day of this 7th month shall be the Feast of Tabernacles, for 7 days unto the Lord. And on the first day shall be a holy convocation. Ye shall do no servile work therein. 7 days ye shall offer an offering made by fire unto the Lord. And the 8th day shall be a holy convocation unto you. And ye shall offer an offering made by fire unto the Lord. It is a solemn assembly. And ye shall do no servile work therein. These are the feasts of the Lord, which ye shall proclaim to be holy convocations, to offer an offering made by fire unto the Lord, a burnt offering and a meat offering, a sacrifice and drink offerings, everything upon this day. Verse 38. Besides the Sabbath of the Lord, and besides your gifts, and besides all your vows, and besides all your free will offerings, which ye shall give unto the Lord. Also in the 15th day of the 7th month, when ye shall have gathered in the fruit of the land, ye shall keep a feast unto the Lord 7 days. On the first day of the Sabbath, and on the 8th day shall be a Sabbath. And ye shall take on you the first day the boughs of goodly trees, branches of palm trees, and the boughs of thick trees, and willows of the brook, and ye shall rejoice before the Lord your God 7 days. And ye shall keep it a feast unto the Lord 7 days in a year. It shall be a statute forever in your generation. Ye shall celebrate it in the 7th month. Ye shall dwell in booths 7 days. All that are Israelites born shall dwell in booths, that your generations may know that I made the children of Israel to dwell in booths when I brought them out of the land of Egypt. I am the Lord your God. And Moses declared unto the children of Israel the feasts of the Lord. And may God add a blessing to the reading of his word. I've read you pretty much the entire chapter of the 23rd book of Leviticus. And I wanted to read that because it spells out everything. Now, one of the things we know that God is specific in what he says. He is specific. God is very specific. And the danger we get into is when we take the specifics of God and we translate them to become unspecific. Then we have an issue, because when if God said make it black, and we said, well, black is a dark color of gray, and we say gray, then we had unspecified what the Lord said. Do y'all get that? I hope y'all get that. And that becomes a danger. It becomes a danger because if he says black, then that's what he means. He does not mean a dark shade of gray. If he wanted to mean that, he would have said that. Amen, somebody. Mm-hmm. Now, if we look at the 7 feasts of Israel, before we go into your study guide, I just want to give you some, let me just give you my exhortation on this, and then we'll get into the study guide. Then we get into the study guide. All right? The 7 feasts of Israel are listed in the 23rd chapter we just read of the book of Leviticus in the Old Testament or the Old Covenant. Now, what is so special about the Old Covenant? The Old Covenant is the foundation. All right? That is the foundation. Now, when you build something, you cannot build any structure. You cannot build any organization. You cannot build no company without a foundation. You have to have a foundation, and then you build it up. Does that make sense? So when you look at the Old Covenant or the ancient covenant, what we see is the foundation. All right? We see the foundation. And then we see, and later on, we're going to see this, Jesus Christ being the cornerstone. He's the one that bridges the old, or the foundation, with the structure. Because no structure, this building could not be built without the first cornerstone that ties the foundation and the structure together. Does that make sense? Okay, good. Now, we understand that all the feasts as we call them were not all feasts as we think. However, they were all observant. And God made it very clear. These are the things I want you to observe. For a minute, we're going to go back in time, and then we're going to come forward. But in order to know where we are now, we got to go back and see what's going on to get us a understanding as we move forward. I don't know if you ever heard somebody say, in order to know where you're going, know where you came from. And we see just in us as a people of color, we don't know where we're going a lot of times because we don't have an idea where we come from. That's right. We really don't know. So we're killing each other. And I'm not getting into Sister Kim about the laws of God per se, but I want you to look at this for a minute. One of the things God says, thou shalt not kill. That's one of the things. And what are we doing? We killing each other. We had no idea that our violation of God's word is keeping us from moving forward in him. Right. Because we're violating. All right? Now, let's stay with me a little bit. So these are things that they were supposed to observe. All right? Now, I'm going to name the 7 observance, a.k.a. feasts. So we know we have the feast of Passover. We're going to talk about it. We have the feast of unleavened bread, and we're going to talk about that. We have the feast of first fruits. We're going to talk about that. We got the feast of Pentecost. We're going to talk about that. We have the feast of trumpets. We're going to talk about that. And the feast of the Day of Atonement. We're going to talk about that. And the feast of Tabernacles. We're going to talk about that. We have to go back in time. Now, we're going all the way back because I want you to know where we are. Are we going back when the children of Israel came out of where?
Egypt.
They just came out of Egypt, all right? They just came out of Egypt, and they are, where are they now? They already crossed the Red Sea, so they are between, let me say it like this, the Red Sea and the Promised Land. They are in what you call the wilderness, okay? This is where they are right now. They are in the wilderness, all right? They are in the wilderness. They have left Egypt, they crossed the Red Sea, and they are in the wilderness, all right? Now, and let's go back to verse 5. Let's go back to verse 5. All right? Because we're going to see, I don't know if we're going to get it done today, but we're going to see how these observances or these feasts, as we call them, how do they correlate in the 21st century? How do they correlate with the new birth experience? How do they correlate? Because if God said it then, God don't make mistakes. All right? God don't say, you know what? Hey, I made a mistake by now, and I'm going to do something totally, I'm going to tear all this down and do something. God don't operate like that. But what he does do, he says, as you move forward, I'm going to give you not only revelation, but I'm going to give you clarity of what was done. All right? Now, in the verse 5 of Leviticus, we find the Passover, all right? And the Passover is, let's read that again real quick. In the 14th day of the first month, even is the Lord's Passover, all right? That's the Passover. We're going to talk about it. Let's look at verse 6, all right? This is dealing with the unleavened bread, all right? He says in what? In the 15th day of the what month? Same month. So we're in what month is he dealing with right now? Let's give you a number. He gives a specific number. The 7th month. All right? He's dealing with the 7th month. All right? Now he says here in verse 6. On the 15th day of the same month is the feast of the unleavened bread, even unto the Lord. 7 days you shall eat unleavened bread. Remember that, because we're going to go back and talk about it. All right, let's go to verse 15 and 16. Skip down verse 15 and 16. All right, verse 15 and 16. 15, 16. And ye shall count on unto you the morrow after the Sabbath, from the day that ye brought the sheaf of the wave offering. 7th Sabbath shall be, verse 16, even until the morrow after the 7th Sabbath, ye shall number 50 days, and ye shall offer a new meat offering of the Lord. Now, these are combined with the Feast of the First Fruits and the Feast of Pentecost. All right? Just keep that in mind, okay? Well, I just said, you know what? Let's go back to verse 10, because I don't want to confuse you. Go back to verse 10. Verse 10. Speak unto the children of Israel, and say unto them, when you come into land which I give unto you, you shall reap the harvest. This is the first fruit, the feast of the first fruit. All right? Reap the harvest, then you shall bring a sheaf of the what? First fruit of your harvest unto the priest. Then we go down to verses 15 and 16 that we just read, and that is the Feast of Pentecost. All right? Now let's go to verse 24. Verse 24. All right? Verse 24 says, speak unto the children of Israel, saying, in the 7th month of the 7th day of the month, ye shall have a Sabbath and memorial of the blowing of the trumpets and holy convocation. So now we see the Feast of Trumpets, okay? The Feast of Trumpets. That's feast number 5, all right? Let's go to verse 27. Also on the 10th day of this 7th month, there shall be a day of atonement. It shall be a holy convocation unto you, and ye shall afflict your souls and offer an offering made by fire unto the Lord. This one is feast number 6. This one is the Day of Atonement. All right? I know some of this is like, wow, I don't know what he's talking about. I'm just laying it out to there for you. And then we go to the 7th feast, which is in verse 34. Verse 34 says, speak unto the children of Israel, the 15th day of this 7th month shall be the Feast of Tabernacles for 7 days unto the Lord. So this is the final feast. 10%. All right, we'll let it just run on out. All right. The Feast of Tabernacles, okay? So I just showed you the 7 feasts that we're going to be studying. I just showed you each one that we're going to be dealing with in the book of Leviticus of the 23rd chapter. All right? Now, the 7 feasts of Israel, they were grouped in 3 great annual celebrations or convocations. All right? Anybody know what convocations are? What it means? Convocations. Huh?
A holy gathering.
A gathering, or what could be another word? A lot of times, really, let me put it in today's term. When we come to church, is that not a gathering? Okay? When we come, is that not an assembly? The assembly, we are assembled together. Some of our church brothers, especially those of Church of God in Christ, they have what they call holy convocations. May call them conventions. All right? We may call them conventions. But it's a time where we all come together. And the holy convocation is really where they all come together, okay? Everybody come together. Because in church, we know everybody don't go to church. Amen. Everybody don't go to church. But if you're part of some, and I'm going to use this word because an organized church setting, a lot of times they're a group of churches, and those group of churches, they set time aside where they all can come together. Every church, whether it's in California, whether it's in New York, whether it's in Nevada, whether it's in Ohio, they all travel to one location for their convocation. All right? Or convention. Same thing. All right? Now, so this was the same thing with Israel. I don't care how far or what side of the wilderness that you were on, you all came together. You all came together, okay? 3 times a year, all the males appear before the Lord in a place where he chooses, all right? In a feast of unleavened bread, and a feast of weeks, and a feast of tabernacles, and they shall not appear before the Lord empty. Now, what do you mean by that, preacher? What do you mean? We didn't read this. Good. Let's go to the book of Deuteronomy. Let's go to Deuteronomy. All right, Deuteronomy. And let's look at, let's see. Let's look at chapter 16. Deuteronomy chapter 16. Verse 16. Yep, Deuteronomy 16:16. Because everything God did at this, during this wilderness experience, everything had a purpose. Because this is the foundation of what is to come. All right? A lot of stuff we see in the wilderness, it seems crazy. It don't make sense. But the Lord was laying out a blueprint. Are y'all with me? Laying a blueprint for today. All right? Look what it says in verse 16. 3 times a year shall all thy males appear before the Lord thy God in the place which he shall choose, in the feast of unleavened bread. That's 1, right? In the feast of weeks, number 2. And in the feast of tabernacles, number 3. They shall not appear before the Lord empty-handed. Now, I want to say this also. Have you ever wondered why we bring an offering to church? Have you ever heard a preacher say, you shouldn't come to church empty-handed? You never heard that? Okay, well, this is where they get stuff from. Preachers don't pull stuff out of the air just to be saying it. All right? In most churches, they do have biblical reasoning why they do what they do. So even here, we can find that as they came before the Lord, they should not come empty-handed. All right? They should bring in what? Offering. And all. Now, does God need our money? No. Does God need our offering? No. But what does that show? That shows 1, obedience, and number 2, that shows thankfulness. Because you could not have nothing. Amen. And let's go back for a minute. Let's go all the way back in the wilderness. There was no need for money. They didn't use a monetary system because, number 1, they weren't even organized like that. So everything they had was agriculture. Everything was from the ground. They did their planting or they did their livestock. That's how they did. And maybe this group over here or this tribe, they were more better in raising corn and wheat and all that. This tribe over here, they did sheep and cattle and all that. And so what they did, they would exchange back and forth. Say, well, I'll give you 1 cow for a harvest of this. And that's how they did things. All right? So when God was talking to them, he was talking to them at that time in what they were dealing with. All right? Now, when we deal with in terms of our present calendar, the 3 annual celebrations was also like this. The unleavened bread was usually held around March, all right? And that was also around Passover. Passover, the unleavened bread, and the first fruits were kind of grouped together in around the month of March, all right? And that was called the early rain, all right? Then you had the Feast of Weeks, or Pentecost, which is around May, and you had Pentecost, and you had the Feast of Trumpets. All right, those were grouped together, and then finally you had the Day of Atonement, or the Feast of Tabernacles. The Day of Atonement, which is around September, which was also included in that, the Feast of Tabernacles. Now, please don't get too lost in all this, because I'm giving you a lot of historical and a lot of foundational before we get into our study guide, all right?
Can I make a
yes,
comment?
ma'am.
Okay. One thing about tabernacles that I recently learned is that when the Bible, when the Word talks about when the Messiah was born, it says that he, in our modern translation, in the King James Version, it says that, and he dwelt among us. However, when you research that word dwelt, it goes back to the Hebrew primitive root of tabernacled. And so, and that took place in the fall. Now, I'm going somewhere and then I'm gonna get off of it, but that took place in the fall. So
Okay, when is September?
in the fall.
Okay.
Yeah, so
Okay.
so I'm looking at the Feast of Tabernacles. So a lot of times we see these images of who supposedly be Mary and Joseph and baby Jesus with this structure over them, and he's in this tent.
Mm-hmm.
Well, he tabernacled among us. And so when I did a little bit further study, I found out that that is more than likely, probably, when Christ was born. He tabernacled among us because it was during the Feast of Tabernacles. So
Okay.
I know we celebrate his birth on, most people celebrate his birth on December the 25th, but if you really want to get into that, then he was more than likely born during the Feast of Tabernacles. That is called a Sukkot, that tent that that we always see the pictures of. And it makes sense. And
remember where Mary and Joseph, they went to the inn. You remember the story? Mm-hmm. The inn was what? Full. Where did he send them? To the manger.
The Greek word is manger, but it wasn't.
No. That's where he was born in. But where did the innkeeper send them? He sent them to the stable. The tabernacle. Okay, you have to have the visual of what's going on. All right, and through translations and translation, because if they went into a stable, that means it's like a shed, basically. It's like a shed. And when you talk about tabernacle, it's that structure, that tent per se. And I know Kim, okay, I'm trying to put that together. Just hang on there.
But the tent that we see, you ever seen the picture of Mary, Joseph, and baby Jesus, and like the nativity scene?
Right.
The nativity
it was always
scene.
Under.
That's what I'm
It was always under the.
Right.
Yeah.
That is it's like as a tent or a structure, a cover, tabernacle.
And this is what they did during the Feast of Tabernacles. They built these tents in remembrance of.
Right.
We'll
So
get into
everything.
it,
Yeah,
so more than likely he was born during that time rather than on December. I just wanted to bring that up.
Right. Good point, because now, Sister Kim, if you don't know, let me be very clear. Jesus was not born on December 25th, but that's the day that everybody kind of flows with. But we know in our minds he was not actually born on that day, but we celebrate. You understand? And we'll get further into that later on, because I don't want to because we're not talking about that just yet, but we'll bring it back in a minute. Now, okay, so we see the Feast of Tabernacles of old. Now, let's try to take the Feast of Tabernacles from the ancient and bring it in today, so we can have an understanding how does that relate and how does that fit for us today? All right. So the Feast of Unleavened Bread. All right. Let's take that for a moment. Well, let's deal with the three feasts first. The three feasts, because these are the three main ones, or they call the Holy Convocations. Okay. The Feast of Unleavened Bread is not in your notes yet. Don't go to your notes yet. All right. The Feast of Unleavened Bread is symbolic, all right, or a type. And you can take notes on this, but on your study notes, this is not on there yet. On the Feast of Unleavened Bread, it is the showing of the initial salvation, and becoming a believer, of the born again experience. That is what the type of the unleavened bread was. All right, and we'll get to the unleavened bread was a type initial salvation of the born again experience. All right.
That was weeks.
No, that's unleavened bread.
Pentecost.
I mean, you got Pentecost now. Now, the Feast of Pentecost. Remember, there was three main feasts. All right, three main ones are the Holy Convocations. All right. We already did with the Feast of Unleavened Bread. Now, the Feast of Pentecost. The Feast of Pentecost is the type, the baptism of the Holy Spirit. Let me also include saying that even for ministry and for, let me just leave it there. For the baptism of the Holy Spirit. All right. The Feast of Pentecost. All right. The Holy Spirit in man. All right. Now, the third one, the Feast of Tabernacles. This is a type of the victorious living of the believer. The one being changed into the image of Christ. All right? The fullness of the fruitfulness. All right? The Feast of Tabernacles also displays, or is a type of dominion over every enemy. The complete union and rest in God. All right?
Could this also be prophetic as the kingdom?
Very, very right. Very prophetic.
It's
It's very prophetic. And see, but you also have to understand that when you look at Scripture, there are scriptures that, even though it is what's the word I want to use?
Literary.
It is literal sense. It still has and you can still have an allegory application. So even though it's literal, it can yet describe something future or be a symbol of something, something future. And that's what types and shadows are. Does that make sense? You can have something that's literal, but at the same time, it's literal at that time, but it is prophetic, or it is a symbol of something to come. Yes, ma'am.
I think another way to put it is that these feasts are basically, I'm going to call them Yah's timeline